Okay, hello. Today's game, I'm going to go through a game. Louis Paulsen played white and Paul Morphy played black. This one's got a really cool queen sacrifice in it, so spoiler alert. Anyway, alright. Paulsen played a e4, e5, very common, knight to f3. So this attacks the pawn, putting pressure on it. What you gonna do, black? What you got? Paul Morphy's like, I got this. Knight to c6, whatever. Okay, so again, common moves of the Spanish game, Roy Lopez, putting pressure on the knight to indirectly put more pressure on the pawn, or the Italian game, I think it's called. I mean, there's heaps of moves at this stage of the game. So developing the knight, c3, and then black develops his knight. This is called, I guess, the four knights game, obviously, because all four knights come out pretty early. What did white do here? Now white develops his bishop, pinning... actually not pinning the knight, but sort of, still sort of putting extra pressure on the pawn. And if this pawn moves, then this knight will be pinned. I don't know if that's an especially good move, but it seems reasonable. Black plays his bishop here, not bothering to pin the knight, which is in a good position, threatening, even really basic stuff. If the knight comes here, then it's threatening a check. Or the knight can take, forking the queen and the rook. Whoops, but anyway, so what did white do here? I already forget. Ah, yes, so an interesting move. He took the pawn. Now this seems, at a basic level, like a mistake. I mean, that pawn is protected by the knight, and there's nothing, this knight isn't pinned, so the knight can just take it. So I'll just show you the basic, just see if you can figure out why that. This sort of, there's a move for white, meaning he didn't lose his knight. So he plays d4 to pin the pieces. So this didn't happen in the game, but then obviously these are both attacked, the queen's protecting the pawn. So black would have to either take the pawn or move back, and then the pawn could take the knight, or move the knight and the pawn takes the bishop, whatever. But let's say if that happened, then the knight is getting attacked and would have to sort of retreat, or maybe actually that pawn can't move. We could play the queen here, whatever. There's a few options, but probably white is doing better. I think usually those sort of sacrifice combinations, the player that initiates it ends up better. But anyway, oh man, you know what? Actually, that didn't happen. Don't worry, I do understand this game. I'm not going to completely mess it up. First, white castled, pretty sure, and then black castled. Then white took the pawn. See how silly of me. But the same sort of tactical idea applies. And I don't know, if it matters much that they castled first, but that makes sense to castle. You want to get your king safe. Don't want it in the center too long. So Morphy just develops his rook. Now I haven't analyzed this position a lot, but I guess he just wants to keep, developing pieces. If that pawn is gone, chances are he's going to want his rook there soon anyway, and it's going to be hard for white to defend this pawn. This sort of attacks the knight and the pawn. It's like a skewer. So there is pressure on white. White chooses to take this knight. I feel like there are other options, even just moving back, but anyway, black takes with this pawn. So there is sort of a rule to usually take towards the center. So black could do this, but then, that could help with this sort of a move later, and trying to push forward in the center. But this bishop will still be stuck for now, and it's not that useful on this. Going that way. This is a nice move because even the queen and rook look really strong there. That's just really, really sort of powerful. And the bishop, this is a nice diagonal. So he does that. Paulsen moves his bishop back. So black can take this pawn now if he wants. He's got the rook and knight attacking. First he plays b5. I'm not 100% sure why. You don't want to just attack things for no reason, but I'm guessing this bishop is in a fairly good position, and this is a fairly safe move to make. There's a good chance black will want to do that at some stage anyway. So he may as well push the bishop to a worse position. This seems reasonable to me, but then I guess maybe black can straight away follow up. This threatens playing a4, and then the bishop's trapped, so white would have to play this, and then black could follow through anyway. I don't know, maybe that's... I'm not sure, maybe it gives black too much space anyway, but that didn't happen. White moved back to e2, and now black takes the pawn. Now I don't know if what white does here is necessary. There is pressure on this pawn, and it's already pinned as well, so white can't do that to get rid of the knight. He could play this, as far as I can tell. That seems quite logical to me. I don't see any particular tactics. Black can double the pawns, but like that, but I don't think that's all that bad. That should be fine. Anyway. But instead white trades the knights. And then I think white does a not that strong move here, unnecessary move. What white should be doing is getting his rook here, pushing this pawn here, or possibly c3 and then pushing that pawn further. He should be trying to figure out a way to get this bishop out, even if he fianchettos. That seems reasonable. But he just plays bishop to f3. Just a general, you don't want to keep moving the same piece again and again. I can't do like an in-depth thing for this game. I don't know if it's, you know, I'm just covering the general idea. The rook moves back, and that protects this pawn as well. And this is fine. Black's happy to put the rook there. He can bring the queen here and get twice the power. He can get the rook over here at some stage. And this rook can swing over to attack the king somewhere. So it's already looking kind of dangerous, because black could bring his rook there, and the bishop can go there, for instance. But there's nothing yet. This bishop is still protecting. These pawns are quite solid. There's not too much danger, but it's... Anyway, white makes a huge mistake here, though. I would say he should be either playing rook to e1 to just trade off the rooks and free up space, or d3. Those are the main things that make sense to me. But he plays c3, which seems like an okay idea. The obvious move he's going to do next is d4, and then that seems pretty good. This bishop is finally out. You know, the queen and the bishop could line up against the king or something along those lines. But anyway, but you've got to look at the specific situation, and black has a very strong move here. So queen to d3, which seems dangerous. Like, generally it's good to get your queen close to their king, but it seems like white should be able to kick it out, but he can't. The bishop can't go there because of the rook. The queen can't go here or anything. That queen is just there, and white can't get rid of it. And this pawn is now stuck, and this bishop is now stuck because of that. And then this rook is sort of stuck. So white is extremely cramped. So I'd say black has a big advantage now. So white plays b4. I guess trying to... He doesn't have a lot of options. Even still now, I feel that unless I'm missing something, which is possible, rook to e1 seems logical. Just to get rid of this rook and give himself a chance to try to get through the middle here somehow. But I'm not sure. Anyway, so b4. Attacking the bishop just calmly moves backwards. It's still useful with this pin. It just creates a lot of danger. Black can put other than this pawn, this square is a bit dangerous. And this, this pawn just can't take anything, can't move. Okay, so then white followed through with a4. I guess this sort of makes sense. If he can get this a file open, he can try to push, but there's too much danger here already. Black chooses to take. I'm not sure if he needed to. I'm not sure why he did that. It seems like he could just try to follow through with other things. Bring out his bishop or here or whatever, and then If white takes, it doesn't seem... Oh, I guess this pawn is sort of pinned by the bishop. But, okay, anyway, he takes the pawn. And then, it seems more logical to take with the rook, but he takes with the queen. It seems dangerous to me because it feels like the queen is doing a good job of just overprotecting pieces here. And being close to the queen, he wants to probably trade it off soon if possible. Because this queen is very annoying for white. Okay, now this actually attacks this pawn, this bishop and the queen. So black develops and defends it. What did white play here? Let me think. Oh yeah, sorry, I couldn't remember. I guess these games are interesting because the way you remember it is through logic, you can't memorize the whole game, but you remember when you get to each position, what would you do? And even, see here I'm not 100% sure. You'd like to move the bishop, but then that pawn will be hanging. I mean, honestly, I feel like I'd possibly even bring the queen back. I don't think it's doing anything here. Maybe you'd bring it here to try to trade queens, I'm not sure. But anyway, he puts his rook here. This seems like I think one software thing and an analyzing program just said it was a silly move. It does look silly, but I guess it's to protect this pawn so this bishop can move, but like where's it going to go? Here? That doesn't, yeah, white's in a tricky position, but I don't think this really helps. It's just, it's very passive and it's kind of silly. Black makes a logical move, bringing the rook here. I mean, this is super strong now. And now all of black's, I guess, 5 pieces or whatever, are all in pretty good positions. The bishop's good, this bishop's pretty good, still pointing near the king. The queen's in a very strong position, and the rooks are very powerful. So white's already in trouble. So, okay, he plays a logical move, queen to a6, trying to trade off the queens. And then, in fact, oh yeah, so first I should just point out, there are a lot of threats here. So, if white does some random move, or if it was black's turn again, this is pretty threatening, because this threatens checkmate, and if white takes the rook, then the rook takes, that's also checkmate. I don't think white can really escape that. That doesn't really help either. There's just nothing white can really do. So, this does defend against that threat though. Black doesn't want to trade. Black wants to keep attacking. This is where there's a crazy move, so just see if you can figure it out. If the queen wasn't there, it would be tempting to just take that rook and then checkmate here. But that queen can then come down instead. So, yeah, black takes this bishop. Apparently Morphy spent about 12 minutes thinking on that move, so that's, but it's funny, I guess for the time that was long, for him, he was very quick, so that was a long time for him to think about it, but by today's standards that's still very, very quick, very fast to think of to process a big sacrifice and decide to go through. White doesn't have much choice, he just lost a bishop, so he basically has to take the queen back. It's a good idea to look at other options though, like I mean, I'm just trying to explain even at a basic level. I thought of this move, like, oh, maybe white can take another piece, and now both the queens are hanging, so it's kind of even. But the thing is, black is playing for an attack, so black can just take the queen, and then white has nothing better than taking the queen, and then black can just do his attack as he was going to anyway, so that doesn't really help. So anyway, so white's best chance is to take the queen and just hope he can defend. So it's good to try and think now. Okay, so black's committed to this attack. What can he do? He's got the bishops, the rooks. Probably the most obvious move is the one that works. So rook to g6, check. White has to move to the side. There's no other options. Now it's tricky though. There's no checks that I can see. Nothing useful. So white brings his bishop in, and that's pretty threatening. I guess mainly there's this check. I mean, obviously he's threatening the rook as well. Trying to think of the exact combinations that exist. Okay, so I was just thinking of some, like, basic things. That doesn't work, because black can check, white has to take it, and then black can check. Bringing the queen in doesn't help, black will just take it, and then blocking, and black will take the rook, checkmate. So, that doesn't help. Yeah, bringing the queen in, like, the rook can't even go there. I guess I'm just trying to think what black can do if white does nothing. Possibly even just this might be good, because then this is threatening checkmate. And if white takes with the rook, black can bring the other rook in, and I think checkmate will happen pretty soon, I think. I don't know, I haven't looked at it in depth. Okay, so white plays his rook here. So that kind of makes sense, still protecting the back rank. So black now goes into a series of checks. There may be other options. This is probably the best thing to do. So that's check, white has to move. Check, taking the pawn. Guess just clearing space to get access to the king. The king can't go back, has to go here. Now the king is very trapped. 2 rooks on each side. This bishop covering. This is a very dangerous position. And I think there's a move I saw someone suggested, or some other chess player. This move, I think, wins the game pretty quickly. White had sort of a free move here, but the threat is obviously check here. So, like, let's say if white brings his rook here, trying to trade off, there may be other ways, but check, white has to go here, and then check, he can go this way or this way. If he goes this way, that's checkmate. You can sort of try to see. If he goes this way, then even, I think there's a few ways. I think you can even just go back. That's checkmate, I'm pretty sure, or that's checkmate as well. That's a double check. Checkmate can't be taken because of the bishop. So that would have been an even stronger way to finish, I guess, or quicker way. I'm trying to think, even if the queen comes here, like, it's the same process. I think the exact same moves work. I'm trying to think if there's anything more exotic white can do. I think the game's over. But anyway, Morphy played check again. The king has to go back, and then he played another discovered check. It may seem like it's repeating, but the difference is he took that pawn away, which may make a little bit of difference. Now he brings this bishop in, and then again the threat is checkmate. So white pretty much has to defend this square. If he brings the rook here, this rook can take it, it's checkmate. Trying to think, he can take this pawn to defend it diagonally, but then black, I think, would be happy to take the queen and then bring it back and still just attack anyway. So white brings his queen down here to defend it diagonally. So black takes the queen, because otherwise I don't think there's any way to proceed, and white takes back. So now if you look at it, it's sort of equal material now. So 2 rooks and a bishop, but the difference is black's got 2 extra pawns, but he wants to keep the attack going. I don't think he can checkmate anymore, but I could be wrong. So he brings his rook here to an aggressive spot, and again white's position is awful. He can't move this pawn, it's pinned because of the rook. He'd like to develop this bishop though. It's just going to take too long just to get anything happening. He could try taking the bishop, but I think, oops, yeah, that's bad. That would be checkmate in a second. So that's not an option. So he brings his rook down here. Now black sort of changes his target. He's now aiming for this pawn. Now, the move that seems obvious to me is for the king to go to g2. Because all this time the king's been trapped. Finally it's got some freedom. And it may seem silly to walk towards these pieces, you know, black can still check again, but, you know, white can try to crawl around here. Once it gets close to these pieces, it can be threatening. But someone suggested a line, bringing the rook here, and if there's not, I don't think there's that much white can do for example, taking the bishop, black can take back, and there's doubled rooks, and the king will get checked again. Anyway, I think black ends up having an advantage. So the line they gave, the king moves to h1, and then the bishop can just move here, saying, fine, take the rook, but then I'll check you. The king moves, and then take the rook. And it doesn't really matter. Anyway, the idea is now this pawn's going to come down. And now, yeah, black has a 3-pawn. Well, I guess white can take this 2-pawn advantage, but the king is sort of stuck. This bishop is still awful, and this pawn in particular can come down. Anyway, so I just wanted to explain that because that's something that I didn't understand why they didn't do that. Okay, now I've got no idea what I was up to. Wait up. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we were here. Rook goes to h6, so now focusing on this square. White played d4. So finally this bishop can sort of go somewhere, and I guess it's threatening this rook, but it's too late. So black plays his bishop here, which I guess sort of just blocks that for now, and now checkmate's guaranteed because black can take on h2. That will be checkmate, in fact, and even if white takes the bishop, black can take here, check, the king can move. Like, okay, so for instance, take, but anyway, so white resigned at that point, so oops, the pawn was there, so check, and then checkmate. Okay, so yeah, I don't know, I think it's just a cool game. I'm still just learning, it's just sort of practice for me. But white made some dumb mistakes, or some just did not play the best he could have, but Paul Morphy just, you know, just always plays very good and manages to get a win quicker than, you know, other players might. Other players might take longer. I mean, these are old games though as well, so theory's come a long way. A lot of modern players would probably play better. But anyway. So yeah, that's it. Louis Paulsen versus Paul Morphy. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Bye.